about to witness some of the worst things Stan Smith has ever done. From taking lives to manipulating his wife and even destroying the world, these are the most unforgivable deeds of Stan Smith. Stan is a menace, and as much as he tries to preach family values and be the man of the house, he's an extreme hypocrite. There are so many times when Stan is just plain selfish, but a good place to start is the vacation goo episode. In this episode, it's revealed that Stan has been faking the family vacations for years by putting the entire family in a memory-altering goo and placing them in a simulation while he goes out and enjoys himself. It all started when Francine wanted the family to sit down and spend time together. Stan promised her he'd take the whole family on vacation to Maui. They all got super excited, thinking they were having a great time until Roger showed up, disconnected them from the simulation just to borrow a pair of earrings, and spilled the truth.
No, Roger, why are we in these things?
Oh, the goo, yeah. Well, every year Stan checks out these artificial memory chambers from the CIA, plops you suckers in, and then programs a great vacay. This year's Maui, sweet. Did you get me one of those hang loose t-shirts? See, because you didn't really go.
But if we're in here, where's Stan?
Come on, Georgetown! Hoy yes! Hoy yes!
After they confront Stan, he tries to make up for it by sending them on another vacation, but that just opens a whole can of worms. The family starts using the goo on each other. Steve puts everyone in the goo so he can throw a party. Haley uses it to have an orgy with Jeff, and the worst part is that the goo has some nasty side effects on their bodies. When all of this comes to light, the family decides to take an actual vacation on a boat cruise. Everything seems to be going fine at first, but Francine becomes paranoid and doesn't trust that it's real. She freaks out and jumps into the sea. The family, along with a girl who has a crush on Steve named Becky, gets into a lifeboat to save Francine, and while they manage to rescue her, they end up lost at sea. Eventually, they wash up on an island inhabited by maniacs and get trapped in a cave for days. During that time, Becky doesn't make it, and the Smiths, in their desperation and starvation, turn to cannibalism and eat poor Becky.
Okay, that's it. Let's do it. Let's eat her.
Steve!
Stan, he's choosing life. There's no shame in that.
Haley!
I've eaten macrobiotic burritos. I can eat this.
Stan, we either do this as a family or not at all.
No! Don't you get it? She's a human being! A human being with a name! Becky Arangino. She's from Seattle. She's 5'4". She's an organ donor.
They eventually get rescued and realize they didn't have to resort to cannibalism in the first place. The worst part? This whole nightmare only happened because of Stan. It all started because he didn't want to spend time with his own family. And trust me, that's just the beginning. Stan's deeds get darker and even more twisted the further down the list we go. So, you might not know this, but Dr. Ray, the CIA therapist, has a bad track record of getting killed in almost every episode he appears in. But there's one instance that really stands out, showing just how cold and heartless Stan can be. In the Stanford Prison episode, Bullock announces that the CIA groundskeeper has passed away, and for some reason, Stan is the only one who was friends with him. Bullock puts Stan in charge of getting rid of the groundskeeper's belongings, and that's where things go downhill for Stan. The guy's death sends him into a major spiral. He becomes completely obsessed with the groundskeeper's leaf blower, the only possession the man had, and stops speaking entirely, communicating only through the leaf blower. Naturally, this drives everyone nuts, and when Francine finally can't take it anymore, she drags Stan to see Dr. Ray, the therapist. Dr. Ray tells Stan that his silence is due to not properly saying goodbye to his friend and suggests that Stan fulfill the groundskeeper's dream job, clearing the CIA's Central Quad, a place the groundskeeper could never access because he didn't have clearance. Stan agrees to this as a way to honor him, and so far, it seems like Stan's being noble. But hang on, here's where things take a dark turn. Stan clears the quad, and then, surprise! A whirlwind appears with the face of his deceased friend, who thanks him for fulfilling his dream and asks to be blown away one last time. Stan, honoring his wish, cranks the leaf blower to turbo and blows him away, but in the process, Dr. Ray gets caught up in the blast too. Now this is where things get really twisted. As Dr. Ray starts falling, Stan lowers the power of the leaf blower to help cushion his fall, but then Ray's mouth accidentally locks onto the nozzle of the blower. Instead of helping, Stan just keeps blowing air into him. Ray's body expands until, well, he bursts. His body explodes from the pressure, his insides and parts flying everywhere. And all of this, it's just another day for Stan.
What do you know? I do feel better.
Yeah, Stan just straight up kills a guy in cold blood, his therapist no less. And what does he do afterward? He says he feels better. No guilt, no second thoughts. He just smiles, walks off into the sunset like it's nothing without even a shred of remorse for blowing up a man who was trying to help him. It's almost chilling how casual Stan is about it. Like he didn't just end someone's life for no reason at all. But then again, that's Stan for you. Capable of the most extreme actions with absolutely no regret. In the next episode called The Mural of the Story, Stan really crosses the line and does probably the most disturbing thing a father could ever do to his daughter. And what's worse, he doesn't even see the problem with it. It starts with Stan noticing that one of Langley Falls' most prestigious murals has been defaced with graffiti. Being Stan, he immediately takes action by starting a GoFundMe and getting the entire town to donate money for the mural's restoration. Everyone pitches in, trusting Stan to handle the renovation. But of course, Stan, with his terrible management skills, ends up losing all the money. Why? Because he threw a party with it. Then, instead of admitting his mistake, he decides to fix the mural himself. As you can guess, the result is disastrous. But here's the sick part. Instead of owning up to it, Stan convinces the entire town that it's Haley's fault the mural turned out so badly. Haley becomes the target of intense hatred and backlash from the community. Things get so bad that she has to hide from the public. And what does Stan do in response? He builds her a room in the garage and tells her she should stay there for the rest of her life, basically suggesting she become a recluse so that he never has to admit his failure. When Haley refuses to go along with this insane plan, Stan resorts to knocking her out with chloroform. And here's where things get really twisted. While she's unconscious, Stan performs a face surgery on her, and let's just say, it's not something you'd wish on anyone. It's truly one of the most horrifying things Stan has ever done.
Tap, tap, tap. Oh, eyeballs bulge in just a bit. No problem. Just need to even it out. Easy. Okay, that one really came out. Well, might as well really get in there with a scalpel then, and there goes the face.
The result of Stan's reckless surgery was catastrophic. Haley's face ended up so deformed that she looked like an orc straight out of Lord of the Rings. Stan, in typical fashion, tried to play it off like it was no big deal, completely ignoring the emotional and physical damage he'd caused. Haley, understandably distraught, couldn't handle looking at herself or being around Stan anymore. She decided to run away, jumping into her car and speeding off in desperation. But in a tragic twist, her car got run over by a truck. Stan's selfishness and refusal to take responsibility led to one of the darkest outcomes ever.
Damn it, O'Shanahans! I just fixed her face!
After the accident, Haley finds herself hospitalized and undergoes plastic surgery that ultimately changes her appearance entirely. Fueled by anger and a desire for revenge, she discovers that Stan is rebuilding the mural he had initially defaced and blamed her for. In true American Dad fashion, the family eventually forgives Stan and he pretends to have learned a valuable lesson about his actions. Haley, trying to put the past behind her, makes amends with him after he dedicates the rebuilt mural in her honor. However, in a twist of irony, they both end up destroying the mural together because they can't bear to have it as a reminder of the chaos and pain it represented in their lives. It's a darkly humorous reflection of their dysfunctional relationship, showcasing how neither truly learned from their experiences.
Why? Why would anyone want to destroy my AutoZone?
I guess the destructive tendencies run in the family. Disfiguring his daughter's face is child's play compared to what Stan did to his friend Brett. In the episode Dope and Faith, Stan prays for a friend because he realizes that he doesn't have a bro to hang out with. That's when he meets Brett. Brett is just like Stan, an ultra-conservative man who shares his interests, including paddleboating, guns, and golfing. The only problem is that Brett is an atheist, and as you know, Stan is a devout Christian, so he does everything possible to make Brett believe in God, like showing him a woman in labor and detailing the life of Kurt Russell. You know, everything he considers an act of God. But Brett is still not having it. When Francine brings a priest to the house, the priest tells Stan that people turn to God during times of adversity. Stan decides that he's going to ruin Brett's life to save his soul from burning in hell.
Of course. People turn to God in times of crisis. If I want to save Brett's immortal soul, all I have to do is destroy his life. Thanks, Father.
So, am I going to see some jugs, or am I wasting my time here?
Stan starts by blowing up his house, then he spreads the bird flu at his restaurant, causing everyone to end up sick. When Brett is crying about losing the restaurant where he put in all his effort, Stan tries to guide him into a life of faith, but Brett's resolve remains unshaken because he still has his family. However, that's when his wife and kids walk in. His wife announces that she's now a lesbian and is going to be with her new lover, and she's taking the kids with her.
You don't become a lesbian. It's not like someone shot an experimental beam into my head and suddenly I'm gay.
Wait! Don't do this! You're all I have!
Yeah, that's right. Stan shot a laser beam into her brain to make her believe she's gay just so she would leave Brett. However, things did not go according to Stan's plan because he pushed Brett beyond rock bottom in just one day, if I might add. The poor guy couldn't take it anymore, so he climbed to the top of a building and jumped off, crashing into a vehicle. Brett falls into a coma, and that's when Stan realizes what an idiot he's been. He makes up his mind that if God brings Brett back to life, he will accept him no matter what. Sure enough, Brett does come back to life, and this time he has proof that God exists because he met him in the afterlife. Sadly, because he tried to take his life, God sent him to hell, where he met Satan. Satan brought him back to life with the condition that he become an avid Satanist, which he does. Stan decides to honor his word with God and accept Brett no matter how he comes back, and the two of them talk about golf and hating poor people. Now, if there's anyone who has suffered at the hands of Stan because of his irrational tendencies, it's Francine. You will not believe the number of things this man has done to Francine to ensure that she is an obedient wife who does whatever he pleases. In the episode Francine's Flashback, Stan erases 20 years from Francine's memories because he forgot about their anniversary and wanted to reset the day. In the episode White Rice, we also find out that Stan, with the help of a hypnotherapist, has been repressing Francine's memories for 20 years so that they would fight less. He took control of the TV show Morning Mimosa to ensure he was in charge of whatever went into her mind. He made her believe that she killed her best friend to the point that she couldn't live with herself, prompting her to relocate to India and even adopt an Indian baby, all because Stan didn't want to hear her say, "I told you so." The point is, Stan has done a lot of things to Francine, but probably the worst thing he ever did to her was when he forgot about their anniversary yet again. To buy himself time to think of an anniversary gift, he gets Francine kidnapped and thrown into a psychiatric hospital. Then he goes on a shopping spree and forgets all about Francine for 3 days. When he finally gets back, he gives her a bucket of chicken as her anniversary gift. Francine is livid and doesn't want to talk to him, so she ends up causing a scene, which is understandable.
Whoa, wait a minute. She's been discharged. Hospital says she's free to go.
I'm Dr. Miller. I am this hospital, and this woman is staying here until I say she is ready to leave.
Wait! Francine!
A psychiatric hospital is not a place where you want to cause a scene, so Francine ends up being readmitted to the hospital, which troubles Stan. He does his best to bust Francine out of the hospital by posing as one of the patients performing during a talent show that's going on at the establishment. He tries to talk to Francine, but she is unresponsive because she has been given severe medication to calm her down. Stan manages to grab Francine and attempts a daring escape, but they both end up getting captured. And guess what? They both get lobotomized, and we don't even know what happens after that because this particular episode was sold to China. But leave it to Stan to have his wife lobotomized due to his excesses. However, there is also an episode where Francine isn't the only person who has had to endure the worst of Stan. Steve, his only begotten son, has seen his fair share of misgivings from American Dad. At one point, Stan cloned him and drove the clone to the brink of death. Stan became his bully because he wanted to toughen him up, but that didn't end well for either of them.
Fight! You know, I was thinking, and I realized something.
What, that you're a gay lord? Steliocontos!
But for me, one of the most heinous things Stan has ever done was when he almost took Steve's virginity by posing as a teenage girl. Yes, wrap your head around that. In the episode Virtual Insanity, Stan realizes that he is missing out on bonding with Steve. This is after he gives Steve a bag full of illegal narcotics as a gift, by the way. But instead of arranging some father and son time or even being at home more, Stan decides to use the CIA tech to create a super hot busty teenager named Phyllis, whom he can control remotely to bond with Steve. Sickening, right? But it gets worse. Stan and Phyllis meet up with Steve and they start hanging out, and young Steve is surprised that a girl as hot as Phyllis is interested in him, but he rolls with it. Phyllis takes Steve to a baseball game and Steve even tries to kiss Phyllis.
Good night, kiddo. It's been a blast.
Yeah.
Seeing that she is unwilling to kiss him, Steve decides to ask another girl, Chelsea, to the school dance. However, Phyllis comes back and offers to have sex with Steve if he takes her to the dance, and Steve agrees. Yes, Stan decided to be the one with whom Steve has his first sexual experience. During the dance, they both have a great time, and Phyllis' Stan even twerks for Steve. I don't think I'll ever get that image out of my head. But when it's time to do the deed, Francine catches wind of it and takes a giant robot from the CIA to stop Phyllis, creating what's probably one of the most epic fights in the series.
I can't believe you do this, Stan! This stops now!
Get out of here, Francine!
Francine manages to hold Steve down and convinces him not to go through with it. Phyllis ends up breaking up with Steve, and when he tries to go back to Chelsea, he finds out she's already moved on. Feeling defeated, Steve returns home, where Stan consoles him.
Did you see that? I was there for him. I was there to help him through this terrible moment in his life.
But you caused that terrible moment.
Yep. Everything worked out for everybody in the end.
Of course, Stan takes credit for solving a problem that he himself caused. The next episode, called Hurricane, is one of my all-time favorites from American Dad, and I think it perfectly summarizes just how unhinged Stan is. The episode starts with a hurricane warning and Francine asks Stan if they should evacuate. Stan refuses, stating that it's a man's job to protect his family. All he wants to do are chores and find his old javelin. Buckle even comes to try to get the family members who want to leave out, but that plan gets thwarted when the storm intensifies. Thanks to Stan's fortifications, he essentially turned the house into a boat. So when the water level rose, the house started floating.
Dad, you didn't seal the drainage that allows water to pass under the house, did you? Because without that, the water will put too much pressure on the structure.
Steve, stop it. Just because you're in an architect club doesn't mean... Hiya, Barb! Some weather, huh? Doesn't mean you know everything about... Hey, Principal Lewis!
End of days, bitches!
But it gets so much worse. Despite Francine's protests, Stan decides that he's going to save the family by fashioning an anchor out of Roger's fridge. When he does that, the house ends up flipping upside down. The attic becomes the floor and it starts to flood. But Stan isn't done. He insists that he's going to get the family out of this mess. Francine manages to get him and the others out of the attic, and he makes it seem like he's the one rescuing her.
There. You're safe now.
The wigs! They're all gone! Half of those belong to Brendan Fraser! Oh, thank the stars you made it. Come here, I've got you.
Oh, bless you, Roger. I was afraid
Thank God this one survived.
The family tells him to stop making decisions because he is terrible in a crisis, but Haley vouches for him. She decides to obey Stan's wish by opening the windows and flooding that particular floor.
What a beautiful creature. And we know so little about them.
Yes, Stan's poor decision-making brings a shark into the house and almost kills Haley. By this point, Stan realizes that his poor choices are going to destroy the family while the rest of the group rescues Haley from the shark and is then chased by it. Klaus gives Stan a pep talk, implying that he's bound to make the right decision at some point. In an attempt to save his family, Stan decides to bring in a bear from a zoo that was displaced by the hurricane. He plans to have the bear and the shark fight each other while the family escapes. Instead, the bear also attacks the family. Next, Stan decides to take out the shark by electrocuting it, but he ends up electrocuting Roger instead. Jeff crawls to Stan and begs him to stop making decisions, but Stan insists that he knows what he's doing and punches Jeff just because. Finally, Francine tells him to stop making decisions and go get help. That's when Stan notices his old college javelin and tries to use it to impale the bear, but he ends up stabbing Francine instead.
I'll harpoon the bear, and the bear blood will distract the shark and we can escape!
Stan!
Even the bear was disappointed in Stan. Thankfully, Buckle shows up and tranquilizes all the wild animals, including Stan, by shooting him in the balls, since he was causing the most damage. When Stan wakes up, he admits that he was unreliable during the disaster, but everyone knows, and even he admits, that he's not going to change. As Stan steps outside, he encounters Peter Griffin from Family Guy in Cleveland from the now-canceled Cleveland show. They all end up pointing guns at each other. When Francine comes out to see what's happening, Stan shoots her. Dad of the year, folks. Dad of the year. By now, you've realized that Stan is willing to put his family through all kinds of danger to get what he wants. So when the family forgets about Father's Day, Stan becomes sad and depressed. In an attempt to make it up to him, they decide to throw him a belated Father's Day celebration the next day. Stan gives them notes on exactly what he wants, and the family tries their best to deliver. Steve builds a birdhouse, Haley writes a song, and Francine prepares a Thanksgiving dinner. At first, Stan seems pleased, but then Roger suggests that they didn't try hard enough. Frustrated, Stan uses a neuralizer, like the one from Men in Black, from the CIA to erase their memories and forces them to redo the Father's Day celebration for 6 months until they get it perfect.
There's nothing that I wanna do.
Rockin' Ronnie coming at you today. Rockin' Ronnie coming at you today.
Trouble with dreams is they don't come true. And
Rockin' Ronnie coming at you today.
When the family finally finds out about the memory wipes, Stan twists the situation to make it seem like it's all about him, accusing them of being ungrateful for everything he does. He then gives them a harsh speech, hurting all their feelings, thinking he can just erase their memories again. However, Klaus secretly broke the neuralizer to punish him, leaving the family stuck with their memories. Stan, realizing he can't just reset everything, gives a heartfelt speech. Once again, the family forgives him, and they even agree to go on a trip to get another neuralizer so he can erase their memories again. It's a very toxic and sadistic relationship Stan has with his family, and sadly, they all go along with it. When Stan's mother, Betty, visits after yet another breakup, Francine starts feeling insecure due to how close Stan is with his mother. Like all of Stan's other relationships, this one is toxic as well.
left her feeling crappy. Sing her a shanty nice and snappy. Wash her in the bathtub. Wash, wash, wash your VJ. Scrub, scrub, scrub your VJ. Rinse, rinse, rinse your VJ. Next we'll do your tushy.
Francine enlists Roger's help, and they set Stan's mom up with Francine's butcher, Hercules. They hit it off and have a great time, but Stan starts getting insecure, fearing that Hercules will break his mom's heart. Roger decides to contact all of Betty's ex-boyfriends to figure out what went wrong in her past relationships so she can avoid repeating the same mistakes. That's when he discovers that all of Betty's past lovers have gone missing. Roger initially believes Betty might have killed them to gain sympathy from Stan, but it's eventually revealed that Stan had been kidnapping all of her past boyfriends. He did this because he was afraid they'd break her heart just like his father did. Stan has been keeping them stranded on a remote island for decades, and he plans to do the same to Hercules. Thankfully, Betty manages to talk some sense into Stan after getting engaged to Hercules, and Stan agrees to let her be happy. However, at the end of the episode, we see all of Betty's ex-boyfriends still trapped on the island where they remain to this day.
Betty! 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 It's Betty! 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 Betty!
Over here!
Hey, you guys want to keep it down? I'm trying to watch TV. I've gone crazy.
If you've been following along so far, you'll notice Stan has a habit of ignoring Steve and dismissing his feelings. So when Stan takes Steve to an amusement park for some father and son bonding time, because he rarely spends time with him, things take a sudden turn. Stan gets called into work for a mission to assassinate a North Korean general by infiltrating an Overwatch tournament that the general is attending. To carry out the mission, Stan's team needs to reach the Overwatch finals, as that's where the general will be. The only problem is that Stan and his team are terrible at playing the game. Bullock, seeing the team's incompetence, secretly recruits Steve for the mission, but Steve isn't aware of the assassination plot. The other CIA agents pose as teenagers to play in the tournament, and they manage to make it to the finals by taking a CIA drug that boosts their reaction times. Stan deceives Steve into thinking they're just hanging out together, but when Steve discovers the truth about the assassination attempt, he's heartbroken. To make it up to Steve, Stan and his team try to balance winning the finals and executing the assassination. Unfortunately, they fail at both. Their botched attempt ends up triggering a nuclear war, destroying the
So, I'm thinking about trying MeUndies.
Earth. So, thanks to Stan's negligence as a father, he ends up being responsible for the destruction of the entire planet. Fortunately, an alien race discovers Chinese ice cream floating in space and decides to restore it. But in order to bring back the ice cream, they have to restore the entire Earth. They do this so perfectly that everything resets to the moment when Stan receives the call for his mission. This time, however, Stan chooses to stay home and spend time with Steve, which prevents the world from being destroyed. I guess if Stan decides to be a good dad and stick around with his son, the world literally becomes a better place. So, that's a look at some of the worst things Stan Smith has ever done. If you can think of any more examples, let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to check out our other videos where we talk about some of the worst things the other Smith family members have done, especially Roger.